Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio, second Tuesday Vacation Station Food, Wine, and Travel Show with the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association. Every second Tuesday, we get to chat with one of their members about various destinations. And today we're going to the San Juan Islands in Washington State. We're very excited to welcome Amy Nesler back on the show. She was on our show about a year ago, I think. Was it a year ago? I think around the same time. And I encourage you to go to their website. It is visitsanjuans.com. ANS. And again, she's from the San Juan Islands Visitor Bureau. So welcome back, Amy. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me back, Lisa.
Hey, it is good to have you back. And Nancy and I were just saying, we were up in Washington State. We didn't quite get to your islands, but we got a feel for the region, which is absolutely, it's spectacular. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It just, you know, we can talk all day. We could do as many stories, but people just need to go, quite frankly. You know what I mean? But we will talk all day about it. We will. We will.
Yeah.
So
there's days I still pinch myself that I live here, and it's been 6 years.
Wow. Wow. It is. I mean,
aren't you lucky?
Yeah. Well, it's idyllic life, but it also, you know, being on islands, it's a whole different lifestyle. And when you get there, I think that there's such sense of place on these islands, and also respect for the land and the community. As a visitor, it's different. As soon as you set foot, you feel like you're in someone's home, but it's welcoming. You know what I mean?
Very much so. Yeah. No, it's idyllic and idiosyncratic.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big word. It's a good thing this isn't our Champagne Sunday show. I wouldn't be able to say that. but you know, so let's talk about where you are, because there's all these islands, and I was reading like it's over 100 islands that you have.
Yes. So there's 172 named islands in the archipelago. Some of them are no bigger than my desk, but but there's actually more like 400 depending on the tide, not all of which have names. But most people are familiar with the largest four, which is San Juan Island, Orcas Island, Lopez Island, and Shaw Island. These are the four that are accessible by ferry. Yeah, we are true islands. There's no bridges. Nothing like that. It's either a ferry or a float plane if you want, or your own private boat to get here.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and then you have to be aware about your ferry schedule and things like that, right? So it's.
Yes. If you plan to bring a car, depending on the time of year, you'll definitely want to make a reservation as far in advance as you can.
Okay. So that's a good tip. So do a lot of people, like for visitors from outside of Washington State, do they fly into SeaTac in Seattle and then maybe rent a car, or can they take a ferry from Seattle and just come out on foot and, you know, go from there?
Most years that is possible. As I'll say, there is a passenger only ferry called the San Juan Clipper. They are currently not running this year due to some new regulations, and there's some question on whether they will hopefully be able to resume service next year. Yes, primarily most people come via Washington State ferries, which runs out of Anacortes, Washington.
Oh, okay. So we were close.
Yeah, so it's about 2 hours north of Seattle, depending on the traffic.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Yeah, and you want to bypass that Seattle traffic. Just get up early and bail, dude. Get out of that traffic. You never know in Seattle, you know. But it's again so beautiful, and get to Anacortes is a beautiful area too. So you've got different harbors, obviously, as well. You know, so like Friday Harbor, right? That's one of the more popular ones.
Yes, Friday Harbor is our county seat here on San Juan Island. It's probably. San Juan Island is the most populous of the islands. And this is the ferry lets out right in town. So it's probably one of the easier ones for a day trip, or if you want to leave the car behind, because lodgings, museums, restaurants, everything is within walking distance in
Cool.
Friday Harbor. Orcas and Lopez, it's a little more challenging to come without a car, but certainly possible, because there are rental options, car rentals, let's say on San Juan and Orcas, as well as bike rentals. And especially for Lopez, if you arrange ahead of time, they'll have the bikes waiting for you at the ferry.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you can pedal your way around. That's cool. Well, that's good. I mean, because you've got to think about emissions for all these islands too.
Mhm.
So what if you can do whatever you can that's kind of either public transport or cycling, on foot, it's got to be better for your area as a whole.
Yes, and I will say, I think some of this has changed a little bit due to COVID, but hitchhiking is still a thing here.
What?
Oh.
Seriously? That's
I don't
cool.
think I've ever heard anybody say that on our show.
Yeah, it's a legal hitchhike.
It's a
We like
first.
that. Legal hitchhiking.
Yeah,
Right
no,
on.
there's signs that will say ride share stop.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's
wow.
that kind of hitchhike.
Yeah. Yes, I
Okay.
mean, but people still hold their thumb out. Yeah, it's
Wow.
so like I say,
Oh,
I
cool.
know some of that has changed with COVID. I don't think it's quite as prevalent, but
Yeah.
this is certainly a place where I, as a woman, maybe not alone, but I, as a woman, would feel safe doing it.
Wow, that's cool. Well, you could get around by kayak too, couldn't you? Canoe or kayak?
I was gonna say, you won't get here from Seattle in a kayak.
No, especially if you've seen the way I kayak, because I tend to go in
No.
circles. So
It does.
they should just put a rope out
Round
and
and
let you go
round
round
and
and round an
round.
island.
That's probably what she would do, go round and round.
I know.
and
But yes, no, kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding is a very classic island adventure, because we're here in the heart of the Salish Sea. So the waters tend to be a little calmer than maybe say out on the Olympic coast.
Cool.
Yeah, between sheltered coves, the kelp forests, and all kinds of crazy views, just entice both the seasoned kayaker and the novice alike. But we usually recommend going out with one of our outfitters the first time, just because the currents can be a little tricky. So it's
That would be
makes
something
sense.
I would do, for sure. And
Yeah,
you do
sense.
have whales. Oh, you sent us some beautiful whale photo. Like, oh my gosh. So that's the other thing. You could be out at Orcas Island and see an orcas, but Orcas Island, as I recall, is not named after Orca the whale.
correct. It's entirely coincidental.
Oh, wow.
It's actually comes from a Spanish expedition out of Mexico, which is actually how all the islands became the San Juans. So most people they don't think San Juan, Washington when you hear.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing is you've got the National Historic Parks too, the National Park Service monuments. So you have the English camp and is it the English camp and the French camp, or is it? I got to
English
get
and
this.
American.
Yeah,
An
English
American,
and
because
American and the pig.
I was trying to tell the pig story and I
The pig
totally botched
story.
it. I think even on a show, I'm always bringing up the pig story and everybody's looking at me, like you're getting this so wrong. So there was a pig that brought peace between the two countries, right? And then all of a sudden somebody ate the pig.
Well,
Oh,
sort
boo.
of. It was technically it was more of a border dispute. The way the Oregon Treaty defined the boundary between the US and Canada as going through the 49th parallel and through the strait. Well, if you look at a map of the Northwest Washington, we've got more than one strait. So the British said, they were already on Vancouver Island. They had some settlements here with the Hudson Bay Company. They said, oh, well, it's Georgia's Strait. San Juans belong to us. And the Americans, who were also starting to settle here, coming from Washington, said, no, it's Harrow Strait. The San Juans belong to us. So tension built, and then kind of just that was the spark. Was a Hudson Bay Company pig got loose, was killed by an American, and it ran up the chain very quickly. And but actually, that was the only shot fired, was that pig. And they
Piggy.
just and it was decided that until they could resolve it, that the Americans would have a garrison at what is now American camp, the English would have a garrison at what is now English camp, and they would be jointly occupied until it could be resolved, which took 12 years.
Wow.
Whoa, whoa.
Well, we
That's
considered that it was 1859 going into this country, like what else was going on in the US that time?
crazy. Yeah,
It was
yes.
not considered a high priority, but it was
No.
decided in 1872 by Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany that the San Juans would be American.
Wow. I didn't even know that part. That's cool. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, you know, the
Why would
island
he
history.
decide?
I know. What,
I don't
yeah, who's
understand.
he?
It's British,
Yeah.
American, but the German decides.
I think it was
Yeah.
considered a neutral party. And
Oh.
as I
okay.
say, I am wildly paraphrasing. There are books written on this conflict.
Okay. Yeah, and I
Okay.
think again, when you go and you can go to the places and actually stand where all this went down, you know,
Mhm.
you get a good feel for it, and you know, there's all the interpretation too, which is really cool. But like you've got all the lighthouses too. That's something else about being out on these islands. Is there's like a gazillion lighthouses, and it's like it's cool. And you think about
Mm.
how hard it was back in the day,
Mhm.
you know, to even operate those lighthouses.
Yes. Yeah, there's 3 of which are open to visitors in the summer. Lime Kiln Light, which is actually this photo behind me, is
Oh, cool.
probably easily the most famous. I guarantee if you Google the San Juan Islands in Google Images, pictures of this lighthouse will come up.
Mm.
This is in Lime Kiln Point State Park, also known as Whale Watch Park, or as I like to say, Whale Wait Park.
Okay.
Also on San Juan is Cattle Point Lighthouse. That's part of our national monument. And then there's, that's the Patos Lighthouse out on Patos, which is a marine state park. So
Mm.
that's not accessible by ferry, but if you have your own boat, or sometimes with one of the kayak operators, you can get
Oh,
out there.
cool.
Mm.
Cool. So one of the things I saw on your website is that if you're, especially, you know, the first time you're going to the San Juan Islands, is to take the scenic drive, which is a really cool way to kind of get your bearings, and you can go to some of the lighthouses, like you're saying, and the historical parks and
Mhm.
all these scenic views, Friday Harbor, and go shopping, eating, you know, sleeping, dark lodgings. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, so it seems like that's a good start. Like even your first day there, would you do that? Would be the scenic drive?
Definitely, yeah. The scenic byway has a little bit of something for everyone, whether it's, you know, you're bringing the family and you want the kids to see the alpacas,
Ooh.
whether you're a couple and you're looking for a wine tasting.
Oh,
stop
okay,
stop at the
okay.
vineyard. Yeah, then there's, let's say, the San Juan Sculpture Park is a great place to stop. It's one of the largest in the Northwest at 20 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, but but the byway continues even over on Orcas, and there again, you've got lots of different things to stop and see. Orcas Island pottery is such a, as they say, it's a whimsical adventure. It's tucked back. You almost driving back, you're like, wait, am I really going the right way? Yep.
Yeah.
But it's so cute back there. I love it. And there's lots of beautiful pottery for sale. And then the village of East Sound has all kinds of fun shops. Plus Moran State Park on Orcas is actually the 4th largest in Washington at over 5,000 acres.
Oh, wow. For an
Yep.
island, that's not bad at all.
I know. I'm saying this is a pretty big island.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, right next to it is Rosario Resort.
Oh, yes, we've heard of them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, built
So-
by Robert Moran, who actually then donated the land that would become Moran State Park.
Oh,
Ah.
nice. So you can be right next to nature and,
Mhm.
when you stay at the resort and, it's cool that you have all these parks, for hiking. And is that a big part of what people do when they come to the San Juans is, I mean, obviously kayaking, right? So there's
Yes.
water, and wildlife watching is a little different because you can look for whales and you can, that kind of thing. But do you have tide pools? You've got to have tide pools too.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, cool.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, no, and that we just say, please just be gentle, like don't pick any animal up.
Mm.
Yeah.
I always like to say, back in my teaching days, I would tell kids to use a 2-finger touch.
Mm.
Just make sure your hands are clean. But yeah, no, there's all kinds of tide pools with anemones, sea stars, crabs.
Yeah.
Like it's straight out of Finding Nemo.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool,
Yeah, it
because
is.
it gives everybody, because we're not all out in the deep ocean seeing what's going on in there, so I think it's
Mhm.
really cool that you can see, the tide pools do things,
Mhm.
like you can see starfish and, and then watch them have their little bubbles.
Their
While
little
they come to-
bubbles.
Well, they
Okay.
do. They have their little
No,
bubbles and you
I
don't
know.
want to touch an urchin. Stay away from
Yeah.
urchins. That's
Actually,
not a good.
just don't touch them at all. You don't
Yeah.
need to touch. Just
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave them
Just watch.
peaceful. I mean, how would you like it if some big finger came down and touched you?
Yeah.
I'd bite it. I'd
Oh,
bite
nice.
it. I'd sting it.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Definitely don't touch Lisa.
Well, you've got to have all the bald eagles too. That's something we kept seeing when okay, the seagulls, like it sounds so good you wake up in the morning to seagulls. And I know it's like they're common, but for
I love
those
them.
who aren't around it every day, they're not
Yes.
common, and it's just a beautiful sound. But when you're out there, we saw bald eagles a few
Mm.
times, which was just magic to experience. So are they there year round?
Generally speaking, I think
Mm.
sometimes they will head for the mainland in the winter because
Okay.
there's maybe more food up, I think, towards the Skagit River, just near Anacortes. But yeah, we actually have the highest number of breeding pairs of bald eagles in the contiguous United States, anywhere
Wow.
outside Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah.
And don't
Pretty
they stick
cool, huh?
together kind of like swans? I think
Yeah.
I was reading something like that the couples really hang out together.
Yes,
They're
they do.
they're loyal. Everybody takes
Oh, they're in love.
they're in love. Oh,
Yeah.
they're beautiful
Oh.
though.
You wouldn't think so
Mhm.
when you listen to them shriek at each other in a
I
tree for a
know.
while, but
They can be pretty brutal, they've
Yes.
got that,
Yeah.
but that call is just like, wow,
Yeah.
it's so bird watching, wildlife watching, hiking, getting out
Mhm.
so do you have, like, when you're talking about Moran State Park, is there like forest areas, or is it mostly, because I saw like some of the photos, like even the American camp has a little bit of like a prairie almost looking kind of, so
Yeah. Yes, American Camp is very much mostly prairie. It's actually one of the last intact prairies, I think, in at least Western Washington, although I'm not 100% sure of that. But it's home to the critically endangered island marble butterfly. That's American Camp is one of the only places in the world they're found.
wow.
And then you can contrast that with actually Moran State Park, which is almost entirely coniferous forests. And it has about 5 lakes and about 38 miles of hiking trails,
Oh,
That's
wow,
pretty
cool.
good. Wow.
most of which can be done as loops and
Hmm.
interconnected.
Nice.
When we were out in Anacortes Whitby area and we went to some of the parks, it seems like it wasn't seen. It seems, well, actually the state of Washington, but we really experienced it more on the islands, that it's very much leave no trace. Whatever you bring into a park, you take out.
Mhm.
Like we're used to, like you go to a national park or state park in, the mainland America, and it's like, here's your trash cans. When you're out there, it's like, no, you need to take that out with you. It's and we know places
Cool.
where people actually use rest areas as their dumping ground. I'm just saying, we've seen it We could
Yeah.
we could actually, because we travel full time, we see all kinds of stuff. We
Like-
could write a book just on people dumping their trash in places.
Like,
So
here's your sofa.
it's not happening. It's not happening in the San Juan Islands, from what I can tell.
You have a
Whidbey and all-
sofa,
all
an
the islands.
armchair in a rest
Yeah, yeah.
area.
Yeah.
No, you didn't see, in one of the best places in regards to not seeing trash, because it's one of the biggest things, and we still see people trash, like actually flick cigarettes out the window and throw
Oh,
things out
that
the
just
window,
hurts.
and
It-
you
yeah,
want to
it
go
drives
off
me nuts.
after him, and then you could get shot. You can't do that
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah.
it's like it's like,
No.
but it seems like your area is just so pristine, and that the locals are keeping it pristine, that really entices the visitors to do the same.
Yes. Yeah, we were actually one of the first counties to formally adopt the Leave No Trace principles.
Mm.
And yeah, so
That's
yeah,
nice.
trash definitely, it certainly is an issue for us, because actually that is one of our biggest exports.
Mm.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Port
'cause-
Island, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a
Yeah.
landfill here. We have transfer stations, but all trash
Oh,
that gets thrown away here has to get shipped off the islands.
Wow.
So I think that's something people don't always realize.
Mhm.
But Washington
Good
as a
point.
state has really made great strides in like reducing plastics.
mhm.
Because now we have the fee associated with single-use bags in the grocery stores. And then they just passed the serviceware law, so now you can't like automatically get utensils or straws with a takeout order. It either has to be available or you have to ask for it.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's why we really encourage people to just kind of think about what you're bringing. And I know this is hard, because especially if you have kids, you need snacks and
Yeah.
all of that. But it's, reusable water bottles. I think this went away a little bit with COVID, but I think it's coming back. Like, you can go into a coffee shop with your own mug
Yeah.
and ask.
Mhm. And also, like, there's utensils you can, we drive around with our own stuff, because
Yeah.
Yes.
we do.
Yeah, it's not that
There's-
hard.
There are bamboo
Yeah.
utensils. There's things that could be that are not plastic, and some people do need a straw, and I understand that medically they do, but
Mhm.
really, so there's straws that are reusable, that you can get
Yes.
glass straws,
Yeah.
all kinds of,
I
so
have-
there's a lot of different ways to just take your own, it's cool to see
Mhm.
areas like Washington State. As you know, we also pets it as we travel. It's part of, during COVID, that's kind of what happened. It's like everything changed, but it turned out to be a really, really cool thing. And so we're in homes all over. And so you get to understand how the trash is working, how the parks are working. So we're
Mhm.
seeing it from different, like, as visitors, and then like residents, in a way, temporary residents. And I have to say, Washington State, I mean, I've never been to a place where your trash bins are the smallest, your recycling and your yard waste are the
Oh,
biggest.
huge.
And I mean, it's like, but the way it's working, you really don't need a big trash can. And like, you have composting bins, some have composting bins. And I'm like, this is so cool. And how hard is it? I mean, everyone we sat for had composting. And if they didn't actively put it in their garden or have a composting bin, it would go into the yard waste. And it's like, this is so cool. And
It's
how
smart.
good is that for everyone to start adopting that? And it makes you stop and think before you just throw away. It really makes you stop and think,
Mhm.
oh, this is composting. Oh, oh, wow, I did use a lot of plastic. And look, is that half of my garbage now? Just,
And what's
that.
really needed,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
and-
really don't need all of that. We really don't.
No, and composting on a commercial level is not something we're equipped to do just yet, but we're getting there. That is
Mm.
something we are working on.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
But
Yeah.
but any number of households here have kind of their own private compost bins that either, then goes into their garden, or like me personally, we have one at our house, and then actually the neighbor picks it up and puts it in her garden.
Oh,
Cool.
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, but it's the way it works, you know,
Yeah.
it's just working together to keep everything clean. And as visitors coming to your area, it's not, you're teaching us something, so we take it home to our communities and we grow as a nation or internationally, because I know you get international visitors too.
Yes.
People want to come see your whales.
Mhm.
And that's something too, is there regulations so that whales aren't having boats on top of them and that kind of thing? So like protections for the whales and the sea life.
Yes. Yes. Those are what's known as the Be Whale Wise guidelines. That's a combination of federal law, including the Marine Mammal Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, and then state guidelines, especially because just in the San Juans, we have 4 different kinds of whales. Because we have actually 2 different kinds of orcas. There's the, again, endangered southern residents, which are heavily reliant on salmon, Chinook especially. And then we actually have a thriving population called Big's killer whales, or also known as transients. They eat seals and porpoises and sea lions, and they are thriving, doing very well. And then we have humpback whales, which sightings of those just continue to increase. I think we started probably 10 years ago, there were maybe 100 individuals in the ID catalog for humpbacks. Now we're up over 600.
Oh, wow.
That's just
That's cool.
a true conservation success story. Humpbacks have
Wow.
really bounced back here.
Nice.
That is really cool to hear. Like,
Yeah, it is. Yay. I like
Yeah,
that.
so standard is for boats on the water, and this includes kayaks, is to maintain anywhere between 200 to 300 yards distance, depending on the species. 300 is the standard for southern residents, but it's kind of just a good rule of thumb because for orcas in general, because it's really hard to tell at a first glance whether you're looking at a Big's killer whale or a southern resident, because the differences are subtle. And also just to mind your speed, because the regulation is 7 knots within a half nautical mile of whales.
okay.
And that applies to all of them.
I think when you're out there, I don't know about boating, but then you've got a lot of people in their own private yachts and everything out there, right? So that's another part of your community, right? Are people that are sailing and
Yes.
coming in. So, and that's a whole talk about waste. Like, okay, you got to think of it. I could so see how it is for islands. It's like, okay, come to our island, but please don't screw it up for us. I'm really sorry to put it so bluntly. But I'm thinking about how it comes in from everyone, you know, yet you want the visitors. So there's this balance for all of us to have.
Yes.
But with the whales, you know, I think it's so cool to experience them in person if you can, like go on, you know, those excursions. That's how you really get to tell the difference, you know, is while you're there and you see that magnificence, and just helps us protect them even more, you know.
Yes, and especially all our whale and wildlife tours now, they don't just talk about the natural history, they also incorporate conservation and talk to guests about, like, you know, here's differences you can make. You know, whether it's
That's cool.
choosing different fish at the fish counter, or like talking to your grocer just to say, like, oh, I see you have salmon for sale, like, what species is this, where is it coming from? You know, and maybe they don't know that answer immediately or right then, but if they know people are asking, then they're going to turn around and find out from their suppliers.
Right. No, that's good.
As one example.
So speaking of that, like food wise, what's the dining like? Because I mean, everyone's working up appetites when they're whale watching and hiking and kayaking in circles. And
yeah. Well, our local food scene is so strong here. People, crab is a definite favorite. People love the Dungeness crab. But we have shellfish farms on Orcas, San Juan, and Lopez. So whether you're looking for clams or oysters or because it's hard to come to an island and not eat seafood unless you're allergic
It's-
to it.
That's what we are. And everywhere we're going, like everyone's like, here, come. Everyone's, when we were out in your area, everyone's like, you've got to do the Dungeness crab. You've got to do this. It's in season. I'm like, we can't, but we'll find out for you. You know? Well, what about farming? I mean, do you have local agriculture?
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any big like major crop farms.
Okay.
Yeah, we have people that raise beef cattle.
Hmm.
Some do pigs, some do goats. Like Lopez.
You
has a-
have to have pigs. It's part of your history.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
funny. But
Yeah. Then there's the goats. There's a very sweet little goat dairy on Lopez with a farm stand. You can buy
cool.
fresh goat cheese, and yeah.
Ooh.
Anytime I'm over there, I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure I stop by Sunnyfield.
Yeah. And then you got lavender farms too, right?
Just the one on San Juan.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful place, and it's definitely seen use tick up during COVID because the farm is always open, even if the store isn't. So you can just go out and walk among the fields.
Mm.
And
Cool.
lavender is just such a soothing scent.
Mm.
I know there are some people who don't like it, which I don't.
We don't
If that's your
understand.
thing, that's your. But it's just, yeah, it's
Oh,
a beautiful place to just kind of like take a few minutes and like, okay, find your zen again.
yeah, exactly. That's cool. That's
Mm.
cool. So farms, and then you've got wine too. That's important. You got a
Mhm.
winery. That's wineries are always good. Do you have breweries that come into your area?
Yeah, I think we have a brewery on each island now.
Oh, well, there you go.
Woo.
Or let's say the three large ones, as well as, yeah,
Mm.
there's so many wineries now because there's not only San Juan Vineyard, there's Orcas Island Winery, Lopez Island Vineyard,
Oh,
and then there's other, like on Orcas has Dobe Wine Company, creating their own blends called the Orcas Project. Like we've just, and then there's even the distilleries. It's not just wine.
mm,
Yeah.
we like that too.
We do.
I know. So, okay. So obviously we need to sleep over now. So
Yep.
what's our lodging like?
Lodging really is widely varied. It kind of depends on what experience you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
Whether you want to camp out near the water. I mean, we
Ooh.
definitely have like glamping tents or
Oh,
yurts.
cool.
There's lots of little B&Bs if you're looking for something very intimate. And plus, then there's the larger resorts like Roche Harbor, Rosario, Dobe, that have a variety of lodging options. But what I do tell people is like, don't expect kind of that 5-star luxury kind of white glove service here, because that's not going to happen.
Okay.
But,
No, that's good to
yeah,
know.
That's good to know.
but it's probable that like what may end up happening is the owner of that B&B will be the one carrying your bags in
Exactly.
for you. So it's
Yeah.
it's a very local kind of intimate experience. You get to know, you get to know the people
Mm.
who run it,
Mm.
who run the lodgings, and often who run the restaurants.
Mm.
Talk to the shopkeepers. Like everything is very local here, and everyone's got a story to tell.
That's awesome though. I
Cool.
mean, that's
Yeah,
part of
that's
it.
fun.
I mean, Nancy, isn't that true? As we travel, we want to have the authentic experience,
Exactly. And everybody's got a different way of saying things and different experiences. It's way more fun than a chain where everybody's told to say the same thing to the same kind of question.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got, and the chains are good too. It's just,
Yes.
it's nice to, it's, I don't know, to me, when you travel and to be able to go in a shop versus buying online from the big store, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's this intimate experience. It's like, yeah, it's, and it's exciting to see that. I know that over COVID, a lot of people had to start selling online, which, that's great, that you can
Mhm.
continue that. But if you're there in person, it's just so cool to actually go in and talk to the shopkeeper, find out why they purchased something, or maybe it's something locally crafted,
Mhm.
that kind of thing, which is really authentic and nice. So
Yeah, and that I would say for that, definitely stop by the weekly farmers market.
ooh, cool.
Because that's, as much as we have people who, bring their produce or bring their meats or seafood, whatever, we have just as many artists who will be there selling their
Oh,
works.
cool.
That's fun.
Yeah, so it's
Hmm.
the farmers market is definitely a huge draw. I think they say in the summer over half their people who visit are visitors, not just,
Oh,
not just
wow.
locals. Yeah.
Do you do
That's nice.
festivals and things like that, or are you more of a laid back destination?
We do have some festivals. Some of them are kind of have been on hold due to COVID. But we just, actually this last weekend was our Orcas Island Lit Fest, their literature festival, doing all kinds of
Okay.
Oh, I thought you all got lit.
I know, that's the first thing I went. I was like, it's Washington State. You never know. It's a happy island.
Yes, it is.
Oh, that's cool though.
Yeah, and then actually the same weekend was our San Juan Island Artist Studio Tour.
Oh,
So for anyone who doesn't have like a booth at the farmers market,
that's so great. Yeah.
That
you
is
can
awesome.
you can go talk to the artist and actually see their workspace, see what they're working on, hear about their process.
Oh, I love that. I
That's
love that.
nice.
And then so you've got those kind of, creative, experiences, which is nice. And for artists, you don't always have your house open or your studio open. So
Exactly.
it's really one of those rare things. And people get to see how art is crafted. So they actually have this sense of value, when you go to those kind of things. But one thing too, we're talking, I know summer is definitely your main season, but do people visit throughout the year, even in winter, spring, fall?
Yes, I would say spring
Wonderful.
and fall are our other two very popular times to visit. Fall is definitely kind of our harvest season. We call it Savor the San Juans. We have 2 film festivals. There's usually farm tours, so you kind of get to see behind the barn door, not just
Yeah.
and there's sometimes they'll do things like cider pressing or sheep shearing or all kinds of things like that. And then spring is just is a great time for wildflowers. That's driving around, you see the farms, like the baby lambs are out.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah,
Nice.
sometimes that's when we find out there's baby whales.
Oh, cool.
Nice time to come out. And then winter, I mean, I know it's colder, right? But you don't get all the snow as much as like the mainland would get, right? Or
Not
do
generally.
You never know.
We do get some snow.
Cool though.
Yeah, but it's usually not as much as some parts of the mainland. And here again, I have to speak in general terms. Our climate is very mild. Usually we don't drop much below 30 in the winter, although the breeze off the water makes it feel a little more colder than that.
Yeah, that's right.
And then generally speaking, we don't get much above 75, 80 in the summer.
Wow.
That's
but
nice.
I was gonna say, with climate change that is changing a little bit, we were subject to that heat dome last year. And then we actually dropped down into freezing temperatures last December. It dropped to about 10.
Wow.
Which that was a very big deal because it froze a lot of pipes and made water an issue for several days.
Wow.
Now that's time for toddies.
Yeah,
but toddies
you
when it
still
gets
need
that
your water
cold.
for making toddies.
I
But yeah,
know.
I think it's crazy because across the country where like certain areas are not used to having air conditioning or heating depending on where it is, and now suddenly it's like, wow, nobody's had air conditioning, we just open our windows that time of year. Well, it's changing, and
Yes.
we have to
pick up our trash and be
Yeah.
responsible and plant trees.
Yes, the
You
more
know,
trees the
before
better,
it gets
for sure.
even worse. So
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
we have volunteer opportunities. People can help with that.
Cool.
Yeah, like actually, I think coming up on I want to say on to the 10th or the 11th. Actually, our San Juan Conservation Land Bank is doing a weed pull off one of their preserves to kind of get rid of invasive blackberry. And people are welcome to come and help with that. And
See, that's cool.
Yeah.
so it's another way to meet locals.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
get
so
to know the
nice.
vegetation of an area.
Yeah.
Get your hands in there. And what I wanted to ask you, what are you doing with those big shears? I'm like, oh, she's gonna get us.
That's from a couple of years ago. It was a Black Friday kind of joining in that REI is like opt to act, not just opt outside, but opt to act and give back. And actually we were cutting down a lot of blackberry.
Okay, so half of the blackberries we've been seeing are probably not what you want, and we think it's really cool. See, we wouldn't know that.
Yeah. Well, blackberry, it's Himalayan blackberry. It is invasive. I mean, it is certainly, I love going out in August and picking blackberries, so many that I run out of things to make with blackberries.
I
But
think you can freeze them.
yes. But it is just one of those, like, it's not a native species here, so we do.
Sure.
But rather than introduce like herbicide or other poisons that would affect other vegetation, we try and just get rid of it. And it's a great way to burn off Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, this is
Yeah.
the thing. I mean, being an
Cool.
island, invasive species have to be a big deal. We look at New Zealand, what
Sure.
they're going through with the rats, and
Mhm.
especially when people can come in by boat, maybe they had something on board, or you just drive in or on a ferry, who knows. It's like a lot of the national parks now, they have the things where you clean your boots before you
Mhm.
get on the trail, which is important. Like, I even realized, like, you take your backpack, you may have set it down somewhere, a little spur gets on there, and you take it to your next park, which could be across
Yes.
the country. So now I'm like, okay, maybe you
You have
better
to be
clean
careful.
everything before you go
Mhm.
into another space, because
Mm.
it happens. And that's how we get rid of all these tiny little species that we didn't even know survive
Mhm.
off of certain plants, so
Yes.
very cool. I love that you can
Mm.
volunteer. That's a
Yeah.
cool activities, and it's a cool thing for kids too, to get them into that giving back mode.
Well, even for families, it's
Mhm.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
A whole family working together for the good of where they live. What
Mm-hmm.
could be better?
Yeah.
Well, and it's really, I've noticed just from my research that like that very conscious sort of meaningful travel that certainly existed before COVID, but it's definitely seen a huge uptick. People are very conscious about where they want to go, how they can contribute. It's what's known as regenerative travel. So it's not just mitigating damage or I shouldn't say damage, mitigating your impact.
Yeah.
And just minimizing that, but it's how can you leave a positive impact besides just your dollars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Be part of it. And then you're connected to an area, and you're creating memories, positive ones. So very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us. It's good to have you
That's
back
been
on the
fun.
show.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to come back now.
I know. There's still more to do.
I know. Everyone, you can go to visitsanjuans.com, and that's JUANS. visitsanjuans.com. We also want to thank the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association. So every second Tuesday, we chat with destinations and we find out about places all around the country and around the world. And every second Friday, we chat with travel writers and authors, and they tell us all about their adventures. And so it's such a cool time. I love the second week of the month. We never know where we're going to go. It's fun. So also check out their website, ifwtwa.org. And if you're in the tourism industry, food, wine, travel industry, or a writer, photographer, they have an awesome conference coming up in November. So you want to check that out on the website, and that will take you to St. Petersburg, Florida. Who doesn't want to be in the coast in November? Sounds good. So again, ifwtwa.org. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Nancy.
Mhm.